Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
You're listening to the Sportsman's Nation Podcast Network, brought to you by Interstate Batteries. Now, it's that time of year where we are trying to organize and prep and plan for the upcoming season, and some of the gear that we use takes batteries. Now, you should go visit your local Interstate Battery store or visit interstatebatteries.com to check out all the different varieties of batteries that they offer. They have truck batteries. They have batteries for your trail cameras. They have batteries for your rangefinder and everything else that is electronic that you use for your hunting equipment. They have batteries for that. interstatebatteries.com. Awesome company. Check them out.
My name is Clay Newcomb, and I'm the host of the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. I'll also be your host into the world of hunting the icon of North American wilderness, the bear. We'll talk about tactics, gear, conservation, but we'll also bring you into some of the wildest country on the planet, chasing bear. Welcome to the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. We're going to be doing a couple of episodes here with houndsmen and their hounds. On this podcast, we're meeting with my good friend Steve Hurd. Steve is 70 years old, and there are pictures of Steve with Plott hounds when he was 4 years old. Steve's been around it his whole life, and he has been instrumental and is one of the main guy, aside from his late father, in developing the Bluff Creek strain of big game and coon hounds. So this is a super interesting podcast. Steve is opinionated. I like that. I like a guy that's confident enough to talk about truly what he believes. And so you're going to hear Steve talk about his hounds, and he's proud of them. And he's dedicated a good part of his life to breeding these dogs. And he's had dogs all over the country on every available type of game. And he's got a lot of credentials. You're going to enjoy this podcast with Steve. And I just want to say that I gravitate towards people who know who they are and that know what they have. And so sometimes confidence and boldness can be mistaken for arrogance. And that's not the case here, in my opinion. So you're gonna like this podcast with Steve for sure. I want to bring your attention while we're talking about houndsmen. I want to bring your attention to the Houndsman XP podcast. Chris Powell and Steve Fielder, good friends of ours, and they started a podcast several months ago. They've produced several. Well, I think they've produced I don't know how many podcasts, 8 to 10 podcasts. Hey, these guys are dedicated houndsmen, and their podcast is all about hounds. They're talking to coon hunters, they're talking to breeders, they're talking to big game houndsmen, they're talking to guys from the east, from the west, and it's a great podcast. If you enjoy hounds, you need to be subscribed to these guys. Lastly, I want to talk about our friends at the Western Bear Foundation. The Western Bear Foundation is representing hunters and bear hunters specifically in the hotbed of the West, where there's a lot of conflict mitigation that is going on between those that do not understand our ways as hunters and are against us, and those that simply don't have an opinion about hunting but need to, and the hunters. It's like there's three different groups. Western Bear Foundation is putting a great face on hunters and creating a new narrative. Western Bear Foundation, their goal is to keep bears on the landscape, and they're doing things with the finances that they produce, and just their mission is to keep hunters in the woods and bears on the landscape. And Joe Condelis out there does a great job. They're a membership-driven organization, nonprofit. And if you're a bear hunter, even if you don't live out there, I encourage you to be a member of the Western Bear Foundation. Check them out at westernbearfoundation.org. Lastly, we're going to be doing 3 podcasts. This first one with Steve Hurd about Bluff Creek Plotts. The second podcast with Steve Hurd is about breeding big game hounds, which will be released a week after this one. The third podcast about hounds, we went to California. We went to the Greenhorn Mountains of California to interview Ed Vance. Ed Vance is 78 years old, and he just wrote a book called Trained by a Hound Dog. It's an incredible book about his 25-year career as an outfitting for bear and mountain lions in California, Montana, Nevada, and Utah. Incredible man, incredible story. So get ready for the next couple of hound episodes. And hey, if you're not a houndsman, listen to these. I feel like it's important for all of us to get behind all legal methods of hunting in this day and hour. If we're going to stand, we're going to have to stand together. And I think you'll enjoy learning about hounds, learning about these guys, and hearing the passion that they have for doing what they do. Welcome to the Bear Hunting Magazine podcast. This is a pretty special day for me to get to sit with a man that really has had quite a bit of influence in my life the last few years through hounds, and that's Steve Hurd, and he's got with his son Colton Hurd. We're at a truck stop not far from Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Right.
And we live about 6 hours apart, and I was going to come all the way to see you, and Steve said, well, I'll meet you. So that's what we did. But I'll give a little introduction, Steve, with my history with you and what we're going to be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm just going to turn it over to you, and you can just talk all you want for 2 hours.
Holy cow.
No, Steve Hurd is and this is the truth, a legendary, iconic Plott breeder. He and his dad, his father's passed away, but Steve's, how old are you, Steve? 60?
I'm 70.
70 years old. Okay. Steve's 70 years old. Steve has been, and this is what we're going to get into, is your history with Plott big game hounds.
Mm-hmm.
But the breed strain of Bluff Creek Plott is what Steve and Colton have
perpetuated.
Yes, it's a family line of dogs. And let me just give a little bit of context for people who may not understand big game hounds or may not even understand what's going on. But so the Plott hound is a UKC registered breed of hound.
Yes, it is.
But inside of this breed, there's different strains of dogs.
There's many different strains. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like big game hunters, coon hunters, hog hunters, you would know, if you're a Plott man, you would know,
what strain is better for what game.
Right, and there would be like these household names like Bluff Creek.
Yeah. And where we kind of varied off from most people was so many people were breeding strictly for bear, strictly for hogs. I would name names, but I won't yet. Or strictly for night champion coon dogs. And we believed, still do, that you can take a really well-bred dog, if it's bred right, and you give him the opportunities. We believe that a well-bred dog can be used on all game, and we have the dogs to prove it. And a lot of people do. Okay, we're not the only ones, but I'm just saying that some people believed that when I bred Grand Night Champion, dogs into my bear dogs, that I would lose some bear qualities. And what I did was I increased a lot of the qualities of intelligence and locating that people had lost by breeding only for bear or only for hogs.
Right.
And when you, once again, in cats in the mountains or in bobcats anywhere, you need a locating ability. And a lot of people had bred that out, and we intentionally used the intelligence and the locating ability to solidify our strain and make it so that people everywhere were looking for it. And also, people call me for hog dog. We have them. If you want a cat dog, we've had them.
Yeah.
Or bear dog, yes. I mean, not saying that other strains don't, but we specialized in having dogs that you could just turn loose. And people say, well, how do you tell that dog when you go to bear country that's what he's supposed to run? For some reason, we've been really lucky or something. And when we go hog hunt country, we run hogs. If we go to bear country, we run bear.
Right.
If we go coon hunting at a UKC hunt, we hunt coon. So, and maybe it's intelligence again.
Yeah. Well, let me give a little bit of context too of how I know you.
Okay.
4 years ago?
I think so.
Well, it was about 4 years ago we started to do the legendary Bear Hound series in Bear Hunting Magazine. You were the first one, Steve.
Yes, I know.
Somebody told me. Well, I saw a picture of Bear Path Gunner in somewhere. It wasn't in a magazine. Yep. I think it was on social media.
Yeah, it was.
And and it was just this beautiful picture of this big Plott dog. Well, not a big Plott dog, beautiful Plott dog with a big bear. And somebody said, this is a legendary dog. And I said, man, I'd like to write an article about that dog. I didn't know that dog from Adam.
Yeah.
Not from Adam.
Exactly.
I sent a few messages, and I said, do y'all know anything about this Bear Path Gunner dog? And 4 people at the same time said, Steve Hurt. I mean, it was like messages coming in from every direction. And somebody gave me your phone number. I called you, and I said, I'd like to write an article about this dog.
Yeah.
I want to say that since that time, the legendary Bear Hound series in our magazine has been highly successful.
Fantastic.
I think we've done 26 articles.
I think so.
So I think we're on 26 right now. But so let's just start right there. And Colton, I want you to jump in too, because you've been around these dogs your whole life, and but we can. Well, okay. Then I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, you tell your story.
We wrote this article. I got to know you, and 2 or 3 months after the article came out, we were looking for a dog. And honestly, we weren't even looking for a hunting dog. Mm-hmm. It was just the kids were of age. We hadn't had a dog in several years. And I thought, man, it'd be cool just to have just a hound dog that could just be our pet. Because I'm an old coon hunter, but I had been out of coon hunting for 20 years. I really had, and had no plans of getting back into it. Mm-hmm. I called you, said, Steve, I'm looking for a dog that we could just. I mean, I don't even know why I called you, because it was stupid to call you, because you don't sell dogs to people that don't really hunt. These aren't pets. Mm-hmm. But I called you and you said, man, will you tell me what you said?
Well, you told me that you were looking for, and I said, you know what, you have kids, and I just love it. I mean, this is how some people get a dog from me, is that they have young kids and they're wanting those kids to see something for real for the first time, maybe. And so I decided, you know what, I had a really well-bred pup, and I knew what this pup would probably do on coon. Okay, should have went to a bear hunter probably, but I just kind of knew what this pup was going to do. And so,
she was kind of a leftover from a litter.
Yeah,
so she was 6 months old.
Yeah, you bet. But she was already doing the right kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? I have one. I have one right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and move you up on the list and let you, if you want this dog, will meet me, and we'll meet, and you take this dog, and I think she's going to be exactly what you're looking for, not only as a friend for the family,
right,
but also as one of the best hunting dogs that you've seen. I mean,
well. And let me tell you what I tell everybody, Steve.
Okay.
At that time, I hardly knew you.
Yep.
Okay, this is several years ago. And we met you, Colton was there.
Randy Minks.
And, Randy was there. Mm-hmm. And here's this little, skinny Plott dog, 6 months old. And you told me everything that dog would be doing and when it would be doing it.
Right.
You were like, 9 months old, it's going to start doing this and this and this. And you're going to have to run it with pretty good coon dogs, or it's going to it's going to beat them to the tree.
Yep.
You're going to have to – and I walked away, and I'm going to be honest with you. I said, if this dog does half of what Steve Hurd said it's going to do, I'm going to be happy.
Yep.
And, I mean, to the day, that dog did everything that you said. And let me just jump to the chase. It became, to us, a legendary hound. Fern's 5 years old now.
Yeah.
Well, she'll be 5 in November.
Yep.
She'll be 5 in November. Yep. We started hunting her. We hunted her 100 nights the first. And again, we weren't even looking for a coon dog.
Yeah.
It was just like we started hunting, and the kids started loving it, and Fern was treeing coons and doing good stuff, and we just had the time of our life. And it, really, my kids will never forget that winter when we went from the time she was 9 months old till the time she was about 2 years old. We just hunted the hair off of her.
Here's what I was trying to caution you. If you go hunting with somebody that has other breeds of dogs, and little Fern opens first, or a Plott hound opens first, a lot of people immediately say, the pup's got to be running trash. But you know what?
Right.
She was bred to have a better nose than those other dogs. She just simply was. And also, she was bred to be independent. She was bred to not have to have somebody show her how to start to do something. She was just natural. Everything's supposed to be natural, and that's the reason I've never owned a shocking collar. I've never shocked. We don't shock our dogs. We want everything to be natural. If you have to shock them off of this and shock them off this, then the next puppies that they have, you're going to have to shock them off and shock them off. So we just let them do natural training, and it worked. It's still working.
Yeah,
I've been doing this since, if you want to back up, 66 years now.
Well, that's a great place to start. So I've told my story. Yeah. Tell me about your history with Bluff Creek Plotts.
Okay, we're sitting there in the house, and Dad got a True magazine, and in it was a story called the Hounds of Plott Valley. And my dad sat down and read this thing. He was just so intrigued. And then he's tried to read it to my mom, and she was, she was doing the dishes or whatever. But I, with my big ears, was sitting there just thinking, oh, my gosh, I love these stories. A dog that has the nose of a bloodhound, the speed of a greyhound, the grit of a pit bull, the intelligence of a collie. This is what they actually said, back
really?
then. Yeah, I mean, they were all exaggerations. But so much more. And Dad said, I've got to have one. I've just got to have one. And my mom said, oh, yeah, sure. So he just had to have them. So there was two Plott hounds for sale locally, and Dad went and bought both of them, and both of them were decent dogs, but they still weren't quite what he was looking for. So he started writing letters to people in North Carolina, Arkansas, any place in there where maybe there might be some kind of Plott influence. Well, he just put a man's name, Clyde Chillicothe, right here, and a town. No zip code, no nothing. We didn't have it back then. Okay. Well, most of the letters were returned, but sometimes he would get a letter back, and all of a sudden he started hearing from some of those old people, Rags Nichols, and some of those old Clyde Burnett, and some of those old timers that were part of the Plott family, either through lineage, through being cousins or whatever, or had got some of the early stock. So Dad said what he was looking for. He wanted a true Plott hound. Okay. So after cutting through the chafe, and
what year would this have been?
This would have been 1952.
52.
Yeah, 52.
Okay.
Or spring of 52 probably.
Okay. Spring of 1952.
And I would have been 4 years old. Okay.
Right.
And so finally he found out what he wanted. He wanted the bloodline of Smokey and Cubby, which would have been like Smith's North Carolina Tom or Nickel Stormy. But then on the bottom side, he wanted Plott's Fanny and out of Lady Plott, because all good dogs at the time, the super dogs, went back to Lady Plott. Okay.
Now, at this time too, Plotts just became UKC registered in
just
1948.
47. Right.
47.
Yeah, I think 46. Yeah, 47. I was born in 48. Yeah.
And so this is kind of like a new breed of hound.
It is.
But they were established in the Southern Appalachians in North Carolina.
But they had a terrible reputation other places around the United States because people were breeding brindle dogs that had no Plott blood in them and sending them off as Plott hounds, or trying to. Okay.
I see.
So anyway, Dad, the main thing that Dad learned, and the main thing that I picked up then and still carry with me now is don't take the phonies. Make sure that what you get is the real true Plott hound. So they said, well, what pedigree are you looking for? I mean, he asked them, what should I be looking for? So they told him. So all of a sudden he opens up Full Cry magazine. There's a little bitty ad in there from Rube Rosander from New Mexico. And it says one Plott male, 15 months old, I believe, Rio Grande Chief, and then one Plott female, Rio Grande Trouble, her sire, North Carolina Tom, her mother, Plott's Fanny. And my dad just, oh my God. So he had some surplus World War II weapons, him and a cousin. And they sold those and immediately sent $62.50 or whatever it was down to buy those 2 dogs, okay? And within about 2 weeks, I was there, walked out of the house. Dad had just got back from the train station in Protection, Kansas, and 2 big, heavy wooden crates, set them on the ground, and out stepped Rio Grande Trouble.
This is like from where the red fern grows.
Exactly, and out stepped Rio Grande Trouble, and my heart started pounding. Oh, my God, never seen a dog that looked like that. Look at this thing. And if you see the pictures, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And right then was the start. That day was the start of. So we took her hunting by herself. The male dog would not hardly run it. He was Wells bred, and he would not hardly run a coon at all. Okay, a raccoon. But we took Trouble by herself, and she went up the creek. Dad took me. I followed with him.
Still right there where you live today.
Well, yeah. Oh yeah.
Is that right?
Right on Bluff Creek. And she went straight up Bluff Creek, hit a track, ran a coon down, went in a hole, got it, pulled it out, killed it. Just like that. Dad said, "Yep, that's what they're supposed to do."
That's
what
they're
he said.
supposed to do.
That's what they're supposed to do right there. So.
And on that day,
And
Bluff Creek Plotts were established.
Yeah, they were established. And he used the name herds for the first 2 or 3 litters.
Okay.
And then he thought it would just be kind of cool. We lived on Bluff Creek, so he changed them by Bluff Creek, by Ozark Chief to Trouble litter, Bluff Creek Drive, Bluff Creek Cindy Sue, Bluff Creek Leader, all those dogs, okay, on that litter. So
in we hadn't said where you're Protection, Kansas. Maybe we have already. I'm losing track of. You guys live in Protection, Kansas, so Bluff Creek is in Kansas.
Oh yeah. It just comes around on the west side of Protection, Kansas, and goes right through our farm.
Yeah.
If you have a real good arm, you can throw a baseball from my house into Bluff Creek. Okay, and all of our pups, every pup that we've ever had, including Fern and Bold and all that litter, and every pup we've ever had, including. When I was little, my dad would let me take the pup. We had pups running loose. And we would take a .22 single-shot rifle, my brother Stan and I, and go down and sometimes tree raccoons in the middle of the afternoon with those Plott pups, and we'd shoot it out to them and drag it home by the tail, Sometimes they weighed 10 pounds or 7 or something. But we've always been right there. And
so your dad was wanting to get these dogs for what?
Well, because he was coon hunting dogs from Missouri, and they were high tan dogs. Okay, they were black saddle with yellow trim. Okay, buckskin trim.
Yeah.
Buck and Lady was their name. So he wanted that, but he also, because they were bear bred, he wanted to sell pups. Everybody that farmed back then needed a little extra money.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to be able to sell pups.
So he was a coon hunter.
Oh yeah. Oh, he coon hunted hard.
But from the beginning, he had in his mind that he wanted these to be some big game dogs as well.
I hate to even tell this, but I'm going to tell you. My dad was invited from people from Washington and from North Carolina, and everybody has always invited to go bear hunting, and he never got to leave the farm to go bear hunting one single time. But in 1950, he bred Trouble in the spring. I think in the fall. Anyway, he bred the first time he bred to the chief dog, and those pups were mediocre to fair dogs, and he sent them maybe to Nebraska and places, and they made really good coon dogs. But then from then on, he started breeding for bear dogs, and he bred to Owens Heavy, to Ozark Chief, and to Herd Smoky, and all those pups went to bear country. And Dad, it was funny, people from Kentucky and from Tennessee and from North Carolina were buying pups from Kansas to go bear hunting with, and we always thought that was kind of odd, but Dad had the blood. Dad had that special.
So was that the first litter that the dogs started excelling on big game?
Oh, just immediately. And once again, he bred Big Creek Lady. Those dogs went to Michigan and places, and they were way above average quality. But Dad was looking for something. He wanted those dogs like in that magazine article. He wanted them to be fat, colder nosed, faster, harder treers, harder fighters. He wanted the epitome of what a Plott hound should be.
Yeah.
And when he bred Ozark Chief, obviously I think that would have been the third cross. Herd Smoky. Those dogs went up to Washington State, place like that, and they all excelled. Landry's Captain Kidd was one of those.
Yeah.
And they became, his dad's reputation started growing immediately because people said, this is the best dog I've ever seen in my life. And Toby Harrell up there, the best bear hunter at that time in Washington State, was he bought 2 or 3 of them, and he said, these are better than anybody else has. He said, I drove.
So they just had natural, just a natural.
Yeah, but when we get into the
ability.
breeding article later, I have some deep theories about why that this.
Yeah.
If you want a stack of gold, you can't go get a bunch of red bricks and then paint them gold. You have to keep stacking gold to make a gold stack. I mean, you
Yeah.
if you ever lose even one generation of that strain that you're working on, then it's so hard to try to go back because you can't find it. Nobody in this day and age has the time or the patience or maybe the ability to start a brand new breed of dog. And so we're relying clear back on those guys from the 40s, back in the 30s and the 40s that lived in those mountains and bred those dogs. And they didn't keep culls. They couldn't afford to feed a dog.
Right.
They could not afford to feed a dog. So they kept the very best, and they bred to the very best. And if they had to walk over the mountain, they would do it.
Yeah.
And if those pups didn't turn out, you know what they did? They got rid of them. See what I'm
Yep.
saying? So,
Yep.
so by 1947, they had built 12 dogs. That's what the old timers would say. There was about 12 dogs that were the epitome of anything that Plott had ever been or would ever be. Okay, and certain people caught right on. Clyde Burnett kind of started a lot of it. Hack Smith deal caught on. Everett Weems caught on. My dad caught on. That if you would breed just a very tight circle around those very, very, very best dogs, that you could always have that caliber dog.
Right.
But if you let down your standards and bred to something lower,
So
go ahead.
the problem is that people, you would think, I mean, someone that knew nothing about big game dogs would just think that, oh, you got a bear dog, well, it's going to produce a bear dog. But
No,
that's
no,
not the
that-
truth.
it's
I mean,
not,
even
no.
inside
No.
of good lines of bear
Yep.
dogs,
No,
you still have a
yep.
lot of
Yep.
misses.
There's-
And so
there's-
what you want is consistency. And that's one thing that you guys
That-
have
that-
found is how to consistently
Yeah.
produce dogs. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the funny thing is, Dad was one of the, Dad and Everett Weems were two of the people that went against the grain. The big breeders back then were trying to tell you, make sure that you breed unrelated dogs. Well, immediately, I don't know whether to mention, some of the old timers or not, but
It's up to you, Steve.
Okay, but there were certain people that had as good a bloodlines as what Dad had or Everett had or Clyde Burnett had or Rags Nichols had, but they immediately would breed that line to something that was not related, and immediately they lost all their
Even
talent.
inside of breeding it to a good dog.
Yeah,
So that's
it
what you're
doesn't
saying. So
matter
it's not like
it
they
doesn't
were.
matter if the dog could walk on water.
That's
the
right.
puppies are still going to have
See,
to
that's
swim.
not intuitive.
Yep.
Like you
Yep.
wouldn't. So
Yep.
you're saying breaking outside of those family lines, even in the same.
Yeah, you just can't do it. A man from Sweden that doesn't really believe in the line breeding stuff. You might end up get to hear this, Jan, if you hear this. He doesn't really believe in the line breeding, but they said to become prepotent, which means that you produce way above the normal of the breed. Somebody wanted to know, has there ever been a prepotent dog that was not tightly bred? And no, it has to be in order to produce the Morgan horse breed, J.P. Morgan. They had this one horse that was perfect. Well, the only way that they could reproduce him was to breed him to his sister and then breed that daughter back to the stallion. And they intensely bred for a Morgan horse from one horse. They just kept breeding right around closer.
Wow.
And that's how they built the Morgan breed. Well, the best of the Plott hounds were bred the same way. And I found out, talking to old Plott family friends years and years and years ago, the Plott family would breed a brother to a sister or a dad to his daughter just immediately, and they did it a lot. But they sometimes didn't exactly tell it that way. You know what I'm saying? I mean, sometimes they acted like they didn't lie. They just didn't have the actual names on there. You didn't know they were brother and sister.
Yeah.
Okay? So,
Yeah.
but the only way to establish a strain and to hang on to a strain right now, we just go out there in our yard and we can breed any dog in our yard to any dog in our yard, and we don't feel one bit ashamed of doing it.
And you've been doing it for
and
60 years.
Yeah, and we've been doing it.
And it's not.
Yeah.
And we know what it's producing.
Yeah, I mean, I have pictures in here of dog matings, and I brought them along intentionally just because so you can see something here, and somebody says, what's the best cross you ever made? Well, Bouncer to Donna produced this, and that was one of my best, and then Bouncer to Sue, and then Candy to Bragg, and then it just goes on and on and on. But once again, it's just the same dogs. All we're doing is just turning.
Yeah.
It's the same field.
Yeah.
We just keep turning it over and planting a new crop. I mean, honest to God.
Well, hey, before we get too far down that road,
Breeding. Yeah, I know.
let's go back
Okay.
to the history of Bluff Creek. And what I'm interested in is, at what point did you guys and people begin to realize that or what point did Bluff Creek begin to have a lot of success with big game and lead me into Bear Path Gunner?
Okay. So, gosh, do I get to think a minute? You can edit some of this stuff, right? Okay. So, Dad sold Bluff Creek Drive to a man in Cherryville, Kansas. That man sent Drive to his uncle. You can't hold me to all this because it's been a while. But he sent it to his uncle who lived just west of Salem, Illinois, where Everett Weems lived. Everett Weems had already bred up his strain of dogs for about 3 generations, and he had Weems Plott Susie, who was out of Nickel Stormy and the Plott's Fanny bloodline, the same thing as Trouble was. So suddenly he was looking for a male dog, and he was as particular as any other human being has ever been, looking for a certain male dog. Tom Telford happened to be over there and saw this dog, Bluff Creek Drive, okay? And he said, Everett, I found a dog, so let's go. So they went over and looked at the dog, and I have a picture of Everett standing in front of the dog. And this was the epitome of what a Plott hound should look like. And Everett saw the pedigree. He said, oh, my God, this is the perfect dog right here. This is exactly what I'm looking for. So he took him home with him and bred Susie, and it produced a litter of pups that is still considered by most people who really know as the greatest litter of Plott pups ever born, okay? And that would be Weems Plott John, Weems Plott Jep, Iron Mountain Moon, Cascade Candy, 400 bear kills, Mr. Rourke's and Nancy, female, Ursus, Weems Plott Jody. The entire litter became famous. Just bear dogs. I mean, the best bear dogs anywhere from one cross.
And so that litter went out, and a lot of other strains were developed. Is that correct?
Okay. The Ursus strain started with Jody. The Weems strain started with that. Dennis Paulson's Iron Mountain strain started with that cross. Mr. Rourke's strain started with that cross. And Burton, the Burton boys' Penny female, their whole line started with a pup from that cross. So, a little bit later, it was decided by Dennis Paulson and a few people that in order to try to reproduce the quality of that litter, you need to take two litter mates from that litter and have them as like the grandparents or something, okay? So this is when I kind of came in, and I knew exactly, just like my dad knew what he was looking for, I knew exactly what I was looking for. I had the Weems John dogs.
What's the time frame here? How old would you have been?
Well, I was
because the last time we talked, you were 4 years old.
Yeah,
so
once again, I'm just following because I didn't have any input whatsoever. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when I got out of college, I graduated from college in '68, and then I was married and stuff. And then by about 1970, I started coon hunting, and I got dogs that were just nothing. I mean, they were Plotts. They were brindle. They were brindle dogs, and they just weren't worth not a gallon of dog food. They just weren't. So Dad said, Steve, I'm going to help you out. So he called Everett Weems. Said, Everett, what do you have? And Everett said, well, I got a pup up here. He's out of your dog's on top and your dog's on the bottom. Got Iron Mountain Moon on the bottom, Cold Creek Bouncer that Dad had raised the mama of, and Weems Plott John out of Bluff Creek Drive on top. Said, I'll send that pup. So he sent that pup down to me, and that was the Judd dog that is kind of famous from ripping the front of the doghouse off and dragging it to the creek. And I started hunting him, and no, I didn't. I turned him loose, and I followed him through the woods. And I had treed like 6 coons that fall until I got him. And once he broke off the front of the doghouse and treed those 5 coons, then he treed 93 more coons in like 45 days by himself.
You got to tell us the story of him ripping the dog box off. I know it, but
I know, and exactly. But okay, so right there. I laying on the floor. I have this great big. Somebody sent me the big long pedigree. I couldn't afford it. Somebody sent me the big long pedigree. I think Dennis Paulson of this cross, and I thought, okay, this is the most incredible dog that I have ever witnessed in my life. This is what the Plott family was breeding for. This is what every Plott hound should be. This extreme, intense dog that could be treeing on a tree with an electric fence tied to it, and it would knock him in the water 5 to 6 times, and he would get up and continue treeing, and it would knock him in the water. He was in the water. And all the other dogs were in the pickup because they couldn't stand that kind of pressure, and he would not leave that tree. And I thought, somehow, the rest of my life, I have to dedicate, this is 1971, somehow the rest of my life I have to dedicate myself, if I'm going to keep these dogs, to breeding dogs exactly like that dog. So he was, and by the way, by now, my dad has kind of stepped back. He has done his job. He bought me that dog, okay? So it's my decision to breed around Judd. So Judd's daddy was Weems Plott Doc by Weems Plott John. His mother was Iron Mountain Cricket by Cold Creek Bouncer, whose mother was Tracy Cindy Sue, who was a litter mate to Bluff Creek Drive. Okay, so
You following this, Colton?
Yeah.
He's heard these stories so many times. I'll let him.
Could you tell these stories?
No, he'll get to talk pretty soon because we'll have him tell you how he picked out his start of his dogs. Okay,
Yeah.
And he did really well. Okay, so I had Weems Plott John on the bottom. So I looked and looked and looked, and I found an ugly old dog in West Virginia named Ben, Carpenter's Ben. And I did a little trading, and I ended up getting him. And he was an ugly little dog, but he was bred better than any other dog in the world at the time as far as the Plott hound's concerned. And he was out of Grand Night champion Cold Creek Bouncer, Grand Night champion Iron Mountain Moon. Moon's daddy was Bluff Creek Drive. Bouncer's mother was Tracy Cindy Sue. That was a first cousin to first cousin, cross right there. So I took him and bred him to those two. I had two Weems Plott John females. And immediately, first dang thing I did, I got Bear Path Gunner, All Heart Millie, all those dogs from that litter,
Wow.
and I got Bluff Creek.
So they came out of that cross.
They came out of that cross that's all I had to do. All I had to do was look at that set of papers, and all I had to do was duplicate. If I had paper in front of me, I'd write for you. All I had to do was duplicate Judd's pedigree by flip-flopping it, and I used Bouncer and Cricket were brother and sister, okay?
Yeah.
And then I put Weems Plott John in there, and just like they said to do.
So that litter is what produced Bear Path Gunner.
That's what it did. And that was my first shot. That was my first attempt.
What year was that?
1971, I think.
1971.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And here I am, a little old kid down here in Oklahoma, a young guy, 30 years old or whatever I was. 48 plus 7. Anyway,
close enough.
And I sent. Okay, Woody Woodby got a hold of me. Said,
"Hey, hold on. Let me stop you right there. We got to go back. You said something that you got to tell at least a short version of the story of this dog ripping off the dog box and going and treeing a coon."
Okay. When I got Judd, I had three females. I had three females, and they were daughters and granddaughters of some extremely highly advertised dogs, coon dogs. Okay. Mm-hmm. But they didn't have the Smith-Deal dogs in them. They didn't have all that stuff in there. And the truth is, I wanted to hunt. I had a 7-cell Texan flashlight that I carried and a .22 rifle that I carried. And I really wanted a good dog. So they bought me this thing. Well, I get Judd. I go to Wichita. And
got Judd from Everett Weems.
Yeah, Everett Weems sent him. Dad paid for it, $100, $150. So I go to Wichita, drive up to Wichita, go in the big Wichita International Airport, and there's a dog baying back there. I thought, what the hell? What the heck? So I walk back down there, and there's this brindle dog, just wild-eyed, and kind of, I would have to say crazy, okay? And I said, my name's on the crate, Steve Hurd. I said, well, I guess that's my dog. And I said, what's going on? And they said, somebody was shipping out a bunch of cats, and they were over here in these other crates, and said that ever since that dog got here, he's been smelling those cats, and he has not shut up one time. I thought, well,
you better not let him out of there.
I think that might be a good deal. And I did. I had a leash with me. I undid him, and he took off running and janked me down and drugged me around looking for those cats. He wanted those cats. So I take this pup home. He's 9 months old, 9 months. So I take him home, or he might have been 8 by then. I take him home, and I put him on this great big old doghouse. Well, if a squirrel goes by or a cat goes by or another dog or a bird, oh, my gosh. Hold on. This is my son, Brandon.
Oh, Clay. Hey, Brandon. How you doing?
How you doing, brother?
Good. We're talking about Judd right now.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a seat.
Okay.
Let me get you.
Okay. Yep. There we go again.
There we go.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. So he's too wild. I said, Dad's got 150 invested in this, which was pretty good money back then. And I thought, I can't just turn him loose and go coon hunt with him. Something's going to happen to him. So for about 2 weeks, I hunted those females, and I could tree coon, but I had to use my flashlight to do it. So my wife, Brandon's mom, hauled me a mile north, and I took the 3 females, and I'm walking down the creek with my 7-cell and my flashlight, and my gun, and walk a little ways, and all of a sudden I hear a dog treed, and I don't mean barking. I'm talking treed. So I kind of speed things up, and pretty soon the females quit walking with me and went down there at the tree, and of course they didn't say anything when they got there. And so I walk in there, and holy cow, not only is there some coons in the tree, but there's old Judd there, and Judd's still tied to the front of his doghouse. He's still tied to a great big A-frame. I mean, I'm talking it was 2x4s in plywood, and it weighed 20 pounds itself, just that door. And he went through some barbed wire fences and was treed on these coon. And
this is how old is the dog? 9 months old.
Yeah, and he's never seen a coon. He has never
That's
seen.
unbelievable.
He has never seen.
So you think he winded the coons from
the house? Yeah, yeah.
They came down Bluff Creek.
Yeah,
he winded the coons.
This is in Pratt, Kansas. Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry, this is in Pratt. So I thought, well, what the heck? I drug the chain.
He went and treed a coon. I just want to clarify. He
left my house.
He was chained to his doghouse.
And he went from here to those trees, which is 200 yards away, and was treed solid. So
with the doghouse tied to it.
Still tied just to the front. He ripped it off.
He ripped it off.
So I unsnapped him. I thought, well, I drugged the dealer.
And you weren't hunting this dog because he wasn't ready yet.
So we went down on the neighbors and we treed more coons that night. And then from then on, I just walked down the road and just turned him loose, and whichever way he would win, and wherever way he'd stick his nose, just follow him. And he never, ever, he never quit. He never missed a night of treeing a coon. You could hunt him at noon. You could hunt him at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We can hunt him right now, and if he is alive, and we'll go tree you a coon. He could
just
win.
find him.
He could
just find him.
He could win like I hate to tell this, but I'm going to. When coon hides prices were high, coon hides prices were high.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of money, and I would take an aluminum ladder, and we would go up to Bluff Creek, and I would throw that over my shoulder and follow him, and he would tree a coon. He never missed. He just never missed. And if you tried to bobcat
tree in a den tree.
Oh,
that's
den
why
tree.
you bring a ladder.
Yeah, absolutely.
He'd tree in a den tree during the day while the coon was sleeping, and you'd
yeah.
get up there and get the coon.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to, but I did, and it's been long enough that the statute of limitations has run out. So that's
you can hunt coons during the day.
I know that. Yeah, I do.
That's not illegal, is it?
But anyway, and then you try to bobcat hunt him on mules, on horses. We did, and he'd pull off and go tree a coon, and you'd go ahead and do your bobcat hunt. Come back 4 or 5 hours later, there he is, solid on that tree, all the bark rubbed off of it. And then at 15 months old, I was going to go to Plott Days to show them what a coon dog was. And we were bobcat hunting North Protection, Kansas, with my dad, and he located a coon. We took him back up, put him on the bobcat track. He hit 2 or 3 licks and headed that way, and we heard him get run over by a car. He got hit by a 63 Chevy 409.
How old was he?
He was about, I think, 15 to 18 months old, probably 18 months old, okay? And so we took him to the veterinary at Wichita, and they said, give him 30 days, but he's not ever going to walk again. And so on the 30th day, he was laying behind my house in Pratt, Kansas, and a cat walked by, and he got up for the first time in 30 days, got up and tried to catch that cat. He drug a leg. He had lost his bowels were constantly running and everything. But we took him to the veterinarian. They cut one leg completely off, so he was 3-legged. Part of his tail was missing. He dripped stuff, and I took him to Illinois. I shouldn't have, but I did. I took him to Illinois, and Everett said, well, I want to hunt that dog. And I said, well, let's go. So Everett, me, and a whole group of guys took one of Everett's dogs and him, and we walked away from Plott Days at Flora, and we struck 5 coons, treed 3 coons on the outside, and Judd got all the strikes, all the trees, and we got back in there, and we're sitting around the deal, and Everett was shaking his head, and he said, fellas, I'm going to tell you something right now. That dog, that 3-legged dog right there that kind of smells, he said, that is a better dog than 95% of the people in Illinois have ever seen. You just no one has a dog like that. So once again, he was the dog that
that's what it started.
And see, I had other.
And that was Judd.
And that was Judd. Okay.
Bluff Creek Judd.
Bluff Creek Judd. Yes, sir. And I knew all I had to do was duplicate his pedigree, just like a stereo. Flip something over and then just do it. And that's what I did. And I got his sister Sue from Everett Weems, okay?
Yeah.
And same bloodline there.
Yeah.
And then I found Donna up in Wyoming.
Yeah.
And she had the Sparlins Jane and Weems Plott John on the bottom side, and I knew it would work. I just knew it would. Intuition already, okay?
Yeah.
So I got.
And that produced Bear Path Gunner. So tell us about Bear Path Gunner.
Okay. It's hard to talk about Bear Path Gunner without, I just now told you the story of Judd, okay? So Bear Path Gunner in the bear dog world was what Judd was in the coon dog. By the way, I've never seen a dog as good as Judd in my entire life. My Candy female was probably as good as a female, but I've never seen a male coon dog in my life as good as Judd. I never expect to ever see one again. Okay, so when I hunted with Gunner, I was so flabbergasted. We had some days we had 9 dogs.
You sold him to a guy up in I mean, just as a pup. I mean,
well, he was 5.5 months old, but he was already doing incredible stuff at home. I mean, some guys come up one night, we went coon hunting. I thought he was too young to take, 5 months old, because I had plenty of young dogs. And we threw a coon on the ground that was cold, and we sat there and drank coffee for 2 hours. And when we came out, we couldn't find Gunner or the coon. And we went clear out to the barn, and he had drugged that coon to about 200 yards and was still fighting him and fighting him and fighting him and fighting him. And, trying to get the coon to come back to life so he could kick his butt, And he would stay treed on a possum for ever. I mean, just forever. So Dad told me that this dog was very special. And when Dad had him, he was born at my dad's place in Protection, Kansas, right where I live now, okay?
Yeah.
And then Dad sent him down to me at about 4.5 months old. He was already doing incredible stuff. And so anyway, we sent him to Idaho, him and a little female named Betty, to Woody Woodby in Beauville, Idaho. A bear fell out of the tree and crushed Betty on her fourth one. So I sent him up Billy and Barney. And Billy turned out to be the world-famous All-Heart Millie, who everybody said was every bit as good as Gunner. Okay, so those 2 dogs were right there. And then, I have a picture of him in here somewhere, there was one more male pup at home, and Woody sent me down $400, I think, and I went to the owner of him and said, Woody wants that dog, and here's this check. And the guy said, you can take him with you, but you gave me the dog, I'm giving him back to you, giving you the check. So I could use it, So I went up and hunted with him, and we treed bear every day. He struck. Nobody could outstrike him.
Woody was a bear hunter in Idaho.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, but and Woody had some health problems, and Woody did not. He would not get off the road, but he told you where everything was at. I was a young buck. I was a rancher. I was in shape. I knew how to shoot, and every day I would stay with Woody, and Gunner would strike, and we would drop him out, and then pretty soon it was just a 1-dog deal. And Gunner, we were hunting with good dogs out of Idaho. Out of Idaho, Oregon, Washington, everywhere. But it was just always Gunner. It was just always Gunner. Okay, so Woody would say, okay, Gunner's around there fighting a bear by himself. Take this gun, go down there and shoot the bear. I get down there. Gunner's completely by himself, got this bear bait up. My Becky female had split off and treat the daughter, or treat a pup or a kitten. What the heck you call them? A cub.
I couldn't think of it either.
Well, they split, and Becky went and treated the cub, and Gunner bait this thing up. And then when I got down there with my gun, the bear took off running, and then a local farmer picked Gunner up off the tree. He'd treed this female up. So then the next day, we treed a red bear way off in the mountains, and Woody said, here, take the gun, go in there. If the bear slips 6 inches, shoot the son of a gun. And I was in there 43 minutes before another dog showed up, and then I was there that much longer before Hunter started showing up. He was that much further. He was 40 minutes
fast.
40 minutes faster than everything. And then the next day we did it again. Becky went with him on this next one, and and little Brandon was with me and lost a shoe on the way in there. You can tell if he was here, I'd have him tell you that story. And but we hunted. We hunted every day. We hunted from 8 dogs to 40 dogs, and one day, every single day in bear country, one dog did all the striking, all the leading, all the treeing, all the baying. One dog, and it was Gunner. It was him. And these other dogs were good dogs, but they thought you had to trail a bear out, and Gunner just cut across the country to the bear, and
he just went and found it. Yeah.
He got to see Brandon, my son Brandon.
Brandon just showed up.
Yeah, he just showed up, and he was with me when we went into Gunner's tree. Gunner and Becky in there when you had the flip little shoes on
in Idaho.
Yeah. And we're trying to hurry, and I'm grabbing him by the arm. And Brandon, how old were you? 8.
Let him have your deal for a second.
Yeah. Okay.
What year would that have been?
It was summer of 1980.
Okay, all right.
So I was 9 years old.
I got him by the hand, and we're running through the woods. He had a little bit of asthma back then. And pretty soon he said, Dad. And I'm dragging him up the mountain. He said, Dad. Pretty soon I stopped and said, what? He said, my shoe's stuck in the water back there. I run back down there, and his little old sneaker is stuck in the mud down there, and there's water running around it, but not into it.
Pulled me straight out of my shoes.
Oh, we know.
And so we stuck it back on
That's
him.
pretty rough for a 9-year-old to hunt Idaho.
I thought bear hunting. I didn't know he meant barefoot.
Yeah.
I was, you know.
And so we get to the tree, and there's two. You can't hear anything underneath the tree because two dogs, Gunner and Becky, are so loud that treeing together. Now there's 6 dogs, maybe.
I was lacking oxygen. I don't really remember.
Okay. So anyway, I'm going to try to speed this story up a little bit. But anyway, a bear hunter from California, not a bear hunter, a lawyer, with a 7mm Magnum and a scope on. He wiped all that Mount St. Helens dust out of the end of that scope so he could see. He said, all I can see is black. And Woody said, just pull the trigger. Or not Woody, but another guy said, just pull the trigger. So he pulls the trigger. The bear hits the ground, and the bear is on his back, and he is fighting dogs. And an old coon hunting trick, there's another big old boy there, and I grabbed a branch, and we stuck it in the bear's mouth, just rammed it in, and then we stood on that branch so that the bear would, and then somebody come up and popped him one more time. So we skinned the bear out, and the whoever was guiding the hunt, Orly, could it have been some younger guy.
It was either Orly or Woody.
No, Woody,
because we were with.
Oh, Woody.
We were off with.
Woody made that. Woody made that. It wasn't very deep. Wasn't very far in there. So Woody said, "Okay, everybody carry something." So.
Okay. Okay. So everybody, he said, nobody walks out of here barehanded. Okay, no pun intended on that. But nobody walks out of here empty-handed.
Yeah.
And I look around, and I see evidently a bear pizzle is worth quite a bit.
Okay.
For wealthy people stirring coffees or whatever.
Yes.
So I thought, well, I didn't know that. I thought, well, if that's important, I might as well.
Carry that.
I might
other parts. Other 2 parts that the bear had, the male bear had.
I had some jingle bells coming out.
So I looked back and I said, "What have you
Idaho
got?
mountain
got?"
oysters.
He said,
"Yeah."
Woody said everybody had to carry something. so he brings the bears, gonads out of the mountain.
So that's been my claim to fame is that I can walk out of the mountains on my first bear hunt. Got the bear by the.
Well, I'd say that was pretty insightful.
But that being my first hunt, that was probably, if I hunted 20 more times, that would probably be the most memorable one.
Yeah.
Well, what we were talking about was just how legendary Bear Path Gunner became.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty cool that you, I mean, as a little boy, you got to hunt with that dog.
Yeah, it was neat. And at the time, I was an only child at that age, and I had the dogs were kind of my siblings. So we spent a lot of time out playing in the yard, and I'd go run from them, and they'd track me down, and I'd tell Dad, "Oh, well, this one's got, this one's the fastest. This one's got the best nose. This one can find me when I'm hidden." And
when Eugene Walker ordered a puppy out of Gunner and Becky, and he told me that he said, "All I care is I want the fastest puppy in the entire bunch because here in West Virginia we kind of like fast dogs." So Brandon went out with his bicycle, and we had a dead rabbit. We shot a rabbit, and we tied it on the back there, and I would open the cage, and all the puppies.
Well, there's a good way to see which one can
there was
run
8
the
of them, maybe 8 pups in that litter. Anyway.
A lot.
So anyway, he would go a quarter of a mile with that bicycle, and the Hank pup, Pocahontas Hank, always lit everything else, all the way up, all the way back. And so he got him in the dog.
They named him Pocahontas Hank.
Pocahontas Hank, yeah, you bet.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, you bet.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, and you'll see him in the pedigrees. You still do a lot of pedigrees. Lots and lots of pedigrees. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Gunner was so personable. I remember staying at Woody's house up there, and I'd lay down on the floor, and Gunner just come over.
He was like a house dog, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean,
he was never.
That's what I
on a leash.
remember.
He never ever.
I think if you'd have told him he was a dog, you'd upset him because I think he really just thought he was a short human.
Yeah, a short human.
Yeah, it's just like hanging out with the rest
the very
of us.
first night, Woody said, "Okay, now," I said, "Where's Gunner sleep?" He said, "Well, there's a great big desk in there, and he's supposed to sleep underneath that desk. But he said, I've got a bed for him made there. But he said, listen to this." He said, he had wood floors. He said, "Come here, listen to this door, kid. I'm going to close this door and listen to what happened." So we closed the door, and all of a sudden you could hear it click, 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 and you could hear Gunner. He jumped up on the bed, and he was in there, sleeping on the bed. And then Woody would go there and rattle the door handle, and you hear Gunner jump off and go back underneath.
So he knew he couldn't. Okay. He wasn't supposed to be in there.
Okay, and some people, bear hunters, believed that all these little cute stories about Gunner and the fact that he would listen to humans and that he wasn't even broke to a leash, as far as we know, that made him a less of a bear dog. But you know what? The more intelligence you can have a bear dog, by far the better. So
Yeah. Well, so Woody ended up selling Bear Path Gunner to a guy in Wisconsin, and that's the guy that I interviewed.
Mike Ricklock.
Mike Ricklock, who's still around.
Yeah. Okay, see, when we were, I don't know what all you can put in here. You can always cut stuff out. When we were up there, and Gunner saw Becky, he just perked up and went flying over to her and then jumped up on her. And Woody said, "She's coming in heat." And I said, No. She won't be in heat for like 6 more months. He said, "Well, what's the deal?" And I said, "He smells a kinship or something. I really don't know. I don't know." But I said,
love at first sight.
But it was. And the truth is, when he wasn't hunting and she was just standing around, he was over there with her almost all the time. So I read the most famous thoroughbred breeder in the world believed that a lot of times natural selection was important. Okay, now this is kind of in the breeding deal again.
I see.
So if he would lead a mare through a bunch of stallions, and the one that she chose, that's how he would breed. And he raised more stakes winners per 100 than any other human has ever done. Okay. Well, when it came time to breed Becky, Becky was a super dog. Okay, just all the way around. And I couldn't find a male that I thought was good enough for her in the central part of the United States, and I didn't have one myself because at that time I was afraid to breed, brother or sister. So I said, you know what, I'm going to breed the Gunner. Well, by then he'd been sold to Mike Ricklock, so I got a hold of Mike, and I said, Mike, I want to breed my Becky female. I thought he would just say, sure, bring her up, He said, well, $350. I said, I sold that dog to Woody for like $175. He said, well, it's $350. You can breed her not to, and the truth is, by then, so many people were wanting to breed to the dog that you kind of had to limit them somehow. So I borrowed the money, I think, from my dad, put her in a crate, shipped her up there, brought her home. And she had, that fantastic litter of dogs. I mean, Pocahontas Hank and Mike Candy and Gunner. Gunner 2, which is red, and just super dogs. I mean, just real things. So the next time she came in heat, about a year later, I got a hold of Mike. He said, I want 2 male pups. That's what I want this time. So I said, yeah, that's fine. I think I sold him like Thunder and Lightning or something.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how. And then so I had taken a 2 half brother and half sister, actually 3/4 brother, 3/4 sister, and bred them together. And once again, even Everett said he thought that I was going to get, short little dogs because I was doubling up on bouncer, and I didn't. I got world beaters, just And
So,
what I was doing, what we were doing was just we kept adding all those genetics, those ones I showed you a while ago, all that North Carolina Tom, all that Nickel Stormy, all that stuff over and over. We just kept adding it right back into the thing, and it can't escape. It's just there. If you put that dog with a good hunter, it's going to make it. So
yeah.
And some people don't believe in 100% litters, and gosh, if I have something that's not, it just upsets the heck out of me if I have a pup.
Yeah. So from there, which would have been, Bear Path Gunner lived to be like 9 years old and died in like 1982, if I remember, something like that, 81, 82.
Yeah, I think he lived to be 10, but
he may have lived to be 10.
Okay.
I'm going off
long.
No,
that's fine. Yeah, me too.
But that dog he became a nationally known dog at that time.
What shocked me when I went to my first American Plott Association days was those old timers come up to me, and I'm talking about people way older than me, okay? And I guess they'd let them out of the rest home. I don't know. but they came to me and said, I heard that you're the one that raised Bear Path Gunner. And I said, yes, I am. And they said, my God, all of us people down here said we all have Gunner in our dogs. And those people from North Carolina, and they had all those good dogs down there, but they were hauling wherever they had to, even from West
Breeding the Gunner.
And breeding the Bear Path Gunner. You know why? Because he was the best thing around. And a lot of times, like Cascade Big Timber was a wonderful dog. I hunted with him. I loved him, okay? But he didn't reproduce at his level. Well, Gunner reproduced at an extremely high level, and that's why people use him. And it's hard to find a pedigree in bear world anymore that doesn't have Bear Path Gunner in there, and sometimes maybe 10 times, 8 or 10 times.
Yeah.
So
especially in these lines like
absolutely.
Ferns, I think, and we went through all this years ago as I was learning this stuff from you, but my pup and her 7th generation pedigree, I think, has Bear Path A lot.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah,
He's way back. It's
well,
back there.
It's just
well. Let's get to a broader picture now. So we've established kind of your family history and
Yeah.
Bear Path Gunner and
Yeah.
Judd and all these
Yeah.
dogs, and then from you've pretty much had you've been sending dogs for bear and mountain lion hunting,
to professional guys.
hog
and
hunting.
I did that a lot for a while. Yeah.
I mean, these are big game dogs. You're not really giving them to coon hunters that much anymore. I'm kind of an exception.
Yeah,
in that
exactly,
we
yeah.
can't run big game in Arkansas, and I needed,
But yeah, and the truth is, the bear hunters really, you can take a blue tick and go tree a coon. And I'm not condemning them, because the truth is it's harder to breed for an extremely good coon dog than it is to breed for a real good bear dog, okay? But there's people out there deserving of an exceptional bear dog, an exceptional lion dog, an exceptional bobcat dog, an exceptional hog dog, and we are producing them, and we like to kind of get them in the good hands. I do a lot of choosing about where my dogs go,
Yeah.
So I took the Little Creek female, went all the way down to at Coweta, Oklahoma, where Brandon lives, and handed it to Alvin Grigg. And she was she littermate.
No. She was
okay, yeah,
a little bit older.
Yeah, but what an exceptional hog dog. I mean, I got to hunt with her one time, and Alvin turned to me and came back and said, "Now, I know you don't like the fact that she's just kind of hunting here close, but she said the moment that she comes by any hog smell, she'll be gone." And he turns around and said, "Herd, come here. Look at this." And she was 800 yards away. He just walked back there. She was
Right.
800 yards. He said, "Next time you see her, she'll have a hog caught." And
Yeah.
him and Travis took off running, and there's a video of it.
Yeah.
It gets kind of intense.
I remember Alvin telling me about that dog rigging a hog on the highway.
Yep.
Well, they were going 70 miles an
Yep.
hour in a closed dog box in the winter.
Oh, yeah.
But all kind of stories.
Oh,
but
yeah.
so these dogs have they're in the hands of people all over the world.
Well, not all. I have never
mean-
sent one overseas, and one I think went over there.
Okay,
But
okay.
They hunt a really weird style over there. Some places you're only allowed one dog or two dogs.
Right.
And I think that it's a terrible disadvantage to a dog to be put in a situation where you're
Yeah.
asking them to fail. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, but
But
a lot
all
of
over the United States,
all over the
yeah.
U.S.
I've never
Yeah.
I've never sent a dog to California. Okay.
Okay.
I've never sent. Yeah, one to Turkey. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not Japan. I almost did. In fact, the Bold pup was just getting ready to be shipped over there, and then they called
really?
and kind of, we're not sure. My partner wants to know this and this and this and this, and I said, and I just waited about 2 days, and he got back home. He said, Georgian, and he said,
didn't send it.
I think we want that dog. And I said, that dog left out of here 2 days ago. He's in Oklahoma, and they absolutely love him, and he's for real. He's
Yeah.
littermate firm.
Bold is a littermate to
and,
firm.
and for real. I bear hunted him up there. We're going to take him up again, hopefully. But no, he's for real. He is absolutely for real.
So, well, describe to me, and this is kind of going backwards a little bit, but describe to me the characteristics that you're breeding for, Steve.
Okay. When people didn't think they needed nose, we had to have it because we hunted in Oklahoma Panhandle, and then still down there, we expect a dog. I would be embarrassed if I hunted with some off-color dogs and they struck in front of me. Okay, I mean it's a little bit of pride, maybe a little bit of false pride. I don't know, but I don't want that. Okay, then they have to have speed because once again, you don't want somebody to outrun your dogs. Okay, so my dogs have to have speed. They have to be intelligent, and if they're dumb, they just don't live long enough to ever get hunted, okay? Because I can't stand a dumb dog. I just can't stand it, okay? They have to be a certain size, and I'm extremely particular on size because a overweight, blubbery-looking male dog or female dog, either one, just can't move, okay? They just simply can't move. They have to locate. And so many bear hunters don't think that this is true, but they have to locate a squirrel in the top of a tree in a blizzard. And I have videos to prove that that's what they do, about 4 months old, okay? They have to be long, stay-put tree dogs. I want my dogs I want them to bay a bear or a hog almost all day long, but I don't really want them to ever actually make contact. It's okay if they do, but I don't want my dogs killed.
You don't want them overly greedy.
There's hunters, and some people listening to this podcast tomorrow, whenever it is, will say, he wants his dogs to turn. No, I want my dogs to live through the day. I really don't care what happens. I want them to live. A dead dog never sires babies, and a dead dog never trees you one more piece of game. So there's people that are so proud about their dogs being so gritty, but
can be counterproductive.
It's counterproductive.
Yeah.
You say my dog can jump higher off a cliff than any dog you've ever seen. Well, that dog only did it once.
Colton, what is so you've been around these dogs your whole life. Now you've got some of your own dogs.
Yes, I have one dog right now named Butch.
Butch. Yep. Now is he the semen dog?
Yes, he came from the original Butch.
Okay, so back in the 90s Butch was around. When was Butch around?
He's been dead 10 years. He's been dead 12. Oops, here we go again.
So y'all, so the pup you've got is now. What do y'all call him?
His name is Butch.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's a couple years old now, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he came from
back up to Buster,
frozen
though,
semen.
Colton originally liked the great big houndy dogs. Okay, Bali and Max.
Yeah.
Okay, and I said, Colton, they're not going to work for you. And he said, well, Dad, how do you pick out a dog? And I said, you just look at them, and pretty soon you see something. You say, okay, this is my dog. So he comes in the house. Nellie had 9 puppies, and out of Reno.
Yep.
And so he comes in the house one day, and you get to tell the rest of the story.
Yeah, he came in the house one day, and I think we were kind of getting shorter on dogs. We had a few. We always had a few good dogs around, and we had a real promising litter. I think there was
9
or 10. I think there had only been one pup, I think, that had died at a young age. And he said, it's time to pick your dog. And I claim Reno. Reno was my first real dog. We bear hunted with.
So in Reno,
I'm talking about Buster.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, but I'm backing up.
Okay.
He learned how to tell stories from you.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Sure.
And
oh man, looky there.
And so I started at a young age, but the dog that I really grew up knowing was Reno. Reno, I remember Reno's litter.
He's probably one of the main stud dogs you've used for the last.
Yeah.
He's still alive. Reno's still alive.
He's still alive, and he's in New Mexico right now.
We're going to see him. We'll go see him in 2 weeks.
And Steve just pulled back Colton's shirt, and you got a tattoo Reno.
Yeah.
On your
Have
shoulder.
you seen it? Have you seen it?
Okay.
Yeah. He was. His litter, I remember growing up, Reno's litter was a super litter. You hear Dad talking a lot about a dog named Scar. Scar was a dog that was bit when she was a little baby by a brown spider and had a really bad on her hip. And a lot of people that hunt with us to this day will tell you that she's the best coon dog that you were ever around. She was extremely good dog. And
so
she was
Reno, Scar,
and
then Mark's dog.
Mark DeFrane's Bren.
Yeah.
And then my Ruger dog that got killed by the bear, and Joe Hudson's Cali female, and Crook, who I got back and sent out to New Mexico, and there was another dog named Hound. Every single dog in the litter. In fact, Joe Hudson called me the other day and said he thinks this might be one of the greatest litters ever made. So,
Mark DeFrane, who's a very reputable veteran bear hunter,
and he says
he'll go to his grave saying that Bren is the best hound
he's ever seen, and she's still alive.
Bren is still alive.
Yeah.
So now tell me, you picked out Reno?
No, I didn't pick out Reno. So, Dad was talking about one of the old litters that was a super litter. That was the first super litter that I've got to experience growing up.
Got it.
We always had Dad had a couple dogs named Sugar and what was the other one? Star.
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of the first females. Remember, but Reno was really the first, big, dog that Dad decided to keep. It wasn't really kind of what he was looking for at the time. Reno was a little bit more of a heavy caliber dog. But he came out one day and said, he's like, there's some gorgeous pups out there in the trailer. He's like, why don't you go pick you a pup? He's like, we weren't originally going to get a male dog.
Right.
Dad prefers the females. So we were looking through there. He's like, I think I have me a female picked out. And he's like, there's one pup that I see something, and I want to see if you see the pup that I see.
And these are out of Reno and Nellie.
So he went out there with me, and I got in the horse trailer and kind of got down there looking at some pups, and I was going through them. There was a couple.
This is like a test.
It was like
and by the way, the puppies
see.
they were just less than 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
Oh, they were little guys.
They were little
bitty.
So this is like.
I think they had just barely got their eyes were open.
Yeah.
Okay, so he says, son,
See if you see what I see.
Well, and I wanted to know, you have to be able to.
He doesn't want me going out there and picking, the light brindle and the heaviest male out there.
River Newcomb's listening to this podcast. River, you got to pick up on some of this.
Yeah.
Well,
but okay, now what he's saying though, real quick, he's saying that he got to watch Reno grow up, and he remembers what Reno did as a pup, and he remembered how Reno looked as
That's
a pup.
how that ties into
and
this.
Scar.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so that was his.
Me and Dad, we kind of know how to pick around the same. When it goes to bulls, we can kind of pick the similar bulls and the horses, and so I went out there and I picked up a couple pups. There was 2 light brindle males in that, and so I kind of looked at them. I'm like, well, that's not really what I think he's looking at. So I kind of shoved them to the side and went through the females and stuff. There was another dog that ended up going to Travis Taves. His name was Rage. He looked a lot like my Buster pup, and I picked him up. I really liked him. I'm like, well, I was like, no. And then it was the last one I picked up, and he was just a gorgeous pup. I mean, he had the right amount of black and the right amount of, this and that. And I picked him up, and there was just a look about him, just almost a confidence look. I mean, it was crazy. And I picked it up, and I said, I'm not sure what you're thinking, Dad, but I'm thinking this pup right here is going to be special. And Dad's like, that's him.
That's
him.
That's the one I picked.
I'll be darned.
And
it was Buster.
And Buster's one of the best bear dogs I've hunted for a long, long time. It's just he got killed by a hog.
And Buster is Fern's daddy.
I know that. Yeah. And by the way, he should have sired a lot more puppies. Because,
he died early.
He
died way too early.
Hey, when I was out in Idaho, I won't say any names here, but when I was in Idaho mountain lion hunting with the Plott man that doesn't necessarily have any of the Bluff Creek strain, he told me that he was very impressed with Buster. Because I probably brought it up. But
right?
Yeah. But he said I was impressed with that dog, and for somebody that doesn't have any connection to a breed, to a line of hounds, to say something really good. But
he definitely turned some heads.
If you had a bunch of dogs run into those woods, they're heavily wooded across where we're sitting here, and they suddenly shut up and they can't. Sometimes a bear just disappears, and a cat will disappear and a coon will disappear. Well, then somebody yells, "Bring Buster!" So you get Buster out of the pickup, you drop him in there, give him 10 seconds. Just give him 10 seconds, and all of a sudden he's opening and
he's moving the track,
and he's moving. And I'm not talking about trailing. I'm talking about screaming. And it happens so often.
What Buster would have been born like in 2010 or something. I mean, it was.
I would have said maybe probably later than that.
Yeah, later than that.
Well,
he died when he was 5 years old, and because he was alive.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He died like the first year that I had Fern. Fern's 4 years old anyway.
Yeah.
But so you picked out this pup.
Yeah,
he became
Buster was
your
my
pup.
claim to fame. Yeah.
And
I wasn't real into. I was always into hunting, and I was always into dogs. But Buster was the one that really made me excited. Going to Wisconsin. In fact, he was my first dog that I actually got to hunt with of our own. We always had our own dog.
Like, that's my dog.
That's my pup. Let's see what he can do.
Fine.
So
when you took Buster with you, you could go hunt in any state in the United States, and when you dropped out with anybody anywhere, you knew that you had as good a dog as was going to be turned loose that day. Okay, and now like the jackpot dog up there right now, when you can haul him anywhere and turn him loose with anybody, and you know what? You're not ever going to be embarrassed. You're just not going to be embarrassed because he's just that good. He just and sometimes you have to keep sharpening your pencil. Well, we've got the old pencil pretty sharp right now because that's what we're trying to do. Okay, and once again, all we're doing is trying to just duplicate what those poor old hunters, them starving old houndsmen did back in the mountains when they were trying to catch game with their dogs. Whether it was hogs or bear, whatever. I didn't realize how much bear they ate back then, but they ate a lot of bear meat.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did.
Well, hey, we're gonna do another podcast. I'm not sure how it's gonna work out here, but so not necessarily in closing, but sort of in closing. We've established, the Bluff Creek line and Plotts and your history. Mm-hmm. Are there any iconic stories that, or just what would you say? You know all that you've said, and I'm kind of just turning this all over to you. If you were going to give some closing remarks about just your history with the Bluff Creek dogs, your dad, the hunting that you guys have done. Or even just what these dogs mean to you, Steve.
Here's it is again. Any hunter and really in any profession, you should be thrilled to death that you're getting to work with Outdoor Life. I mean, you have your magazine. I mean, both you guys are, you're kind of competitors, but you're actually both on the same side. So when your houndsmen are very prideful people, and the Plott people were very prideful people, and Isaiah Kidd was a prideful person, and Gola Ferguson was, and all those people, and Everett Williams was extremely prideful. Well, when you go to the woods, you don't want to have to make up 1,000 excuses about why your dog didn't do what they were supposed to do. You want to simply sit there and have people pat you on the back and say, my God, I have never seen anything like that, okay? Something my dad was always worried about was that younger generations would not be able to enjoy the same caliber dogs that he started with, okay? And then I took over in 71, and I was afraid that people would not also, younger people, some in this room right here, including sitting across the table from me.
Yeah.
I was afraid that they would hear the Plott hound was either growly or slow or big or dumb or silent mouthed or whatever. So I wanted to hang on. I wanted, if nothing else, produce one more litter to let people know that they're still out there. And if you do your homework and do things right, that there will be for several more generations. Okay, so that's my legacy is I want to be able to pass on to younger generations, and I think might be on the way right now. I want a lot of people to get to enjoy that. I mean, do you know how long you might have looked had you not got Fern? I mean, think about it. I mean, how many miles would you have driven? Dad did it for a purpose, to produce the dogs, but also to make sure that they were still out there, okay? Because you know what? Because once, okay, had Everett Weems not have made that cross of Drive to Susie, we wouldn't be sitting here at this table right now, okay?
Right.
Had Dad not made his cross of our chief to Trouble, we wouldn't be sitting here at this table. And I actually believe that the Plott hound, would not have still existed in the form we know it had it not been for a few special people and a few special, very special dogs, okay?
Yeah.
And I mean, nobody wants to promote just more dogs, you don't want that. You want some really elite dogs. And like Joe Hudson says, if you ain't seen it, you ain't going to believe it, okay? I mean, you just, if you haven't seen it, then you're not going to believe it, that a puppy could start that young. The Banjo dog was a freak of nature. He started so young, and he made, even my dogs, he made my dogs look bad. He just did things. I don't remember whether we ever even tied him up. Once again, he just voiced demands, and he's the one who got killed by a bobcat at 14 months old. But by then, I'd already bred him to Cindy because I got medicine people, and he produced Reno and Bryn and Scar. See what I'm saying? One cross only.
Yeah.
And he had 100% outstanding pups out of one litter. See what I'm saying? So, but he was a freak of nature, and he was exactly what I was looking for. So every time, and by the way, Buster looked exactly like him. They were dark
like
brown.
Banjo.
Yep, Banjo, when he was a little pup, I had a Roadrunner, one of them Roadrunner birds. Yeah. He'd come up to the house and, beg for stuff, dog food and stuff. And Banjo hated him, so it became a game. So he would chase that Roadrunner. Well, as time progressed, Banjo got a little faster, and that bird got a little slower. And this went on for 90 days, okay? And the 90th day, probably about the 90th day, could have been 105. All of a sudden, here comes Banjo. And he walks up there, and he lays that Roadrunner in front of me. And he had killed that Roadrunner. And you know what? I swear he was sad. I mean, the game's over.
He was just like, I got him.
But the Roadrunner would get to the tree and then look over his shoulder before he jumped. Well, he shouldn't have looked over his shoulder, That's how Bob Owens lost the Olympics that year.
I'll be
okay.
fine.
Are we done there?
I got to tell you a story later about one of our pups.
Okay.
But it's for a different one. Colton, closing thoughts on how old are you, Colton?
I'm 22.
22. So you've been around these dogs your whole life, and you've hunted. Obviously, you live in Kansas, so they're not running big game in Kansas. But you travel up to Wisconsin and
Michigan.
And anyway, what do these dogs mean to you? I mean, what's it like having such a rich family history with?
Oh, it's awesome.
Plotts?
It's awesome. It's kind of cool having in our family having that claim to fame. With my brother and my dad, and and our grandfather having that in our family. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's definitely been fun. I didn't have video games and stuff as a kid. I mean, that's what you grew up doing. You grew up going outside and playing with the dogs and running alongside the creek and going coon hunting and falling off logs and into the creek. And
Brandon, how old are you? 48. Okay, so that many years apart, and still both of them doing the same thing. He hunted with Gunner, and Colton hunted with Buster, and you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's
been an awesome ride.
Yeah. Okay, so we're across the creek. We've got Banjo, Tater, and Rustin, and me, and we're across the creek. And for some reason, you decided you needed to bring a .22 Magnum rifle out of my pickup over to the creek, and you decided you'd walk across that log. And it's winter. It is cold, dead.
I definitely thought twice about it.
And so all of a sudden we hear this splash, and I don't know what it was. And then all of a sudden this kid climbs up out of the creek, and he's got that .22 Magnum, and he's got water above his waist, and it's 15 degrees out. It's just cold as heck. He said, "I thought you said you needed this rifle." I said, "No, I didn't say that." He said, "Well, I just brought it in here just in case." And so we get over to the pickup. We shoot the coon out with my pistol, and we get over to the pickup, and he said, "I think I got water in my boots." And we took his boots off, and there was more than 1.5 quarts of water in each boot, each one of his boots. And he just wanted all the way.
15-degree weather.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been sloshing, it probably froze.
Needless to say, I don't have very good balance. So,
but it's introduced us to a lot of people, and even back in Brandon's day, it took us to a lot of miles, to a lot of places we would never have been, you know. And we're going to bear camp in Michigan this year, and we're planning on going up and having some fun up there. And Colton's butch dog is up there. We might have old Reno back with us by then, and take him along, because the truth is he still sneaks away from a lot of good fast dogs. You know what I'm saying? So
well, in closing, I'll say that. I would have probably never, because I didn't intentionally get back into hounds. It was kind of by accident. I always say that to people because I didn't expect to get, and I'm not saying that Fern's the best coon dog on the planet. I'm not at all.
It's okay.
But
Go ahead.
For me, she was. For me and my family, she was. I mean, and she still is.
Yep.
And but it was just so fun to hunt with her and tree game and see the things that she did. And it really changed the trajectory. And now I got another dog from you, Jed, who's a character and a half and super smart and
out of Scar.
Jed and Fern.
Out of Scar and
Jed's out of Scar, the female that he was talking about earlier.
Scar was a different dog.
But here's the, I guess, a conclusion, talking about how it has brought you in to so many different people and relationships and stuff. We have taken more on this podcast. We talk, Steve, a lot about the trajectory of hunting and recruiting new hunters and different things. Of all the big game hunting that I've done, I have taken exponentially more new hunters out coon hunting than anything else. I bet we've taken. I mean, we've been talking about this. I don't know how many. River, did you just punch him? River Newcomb and her friends. River just punched her little brother. I bet we've taken 100 people.
Yeah, but see
that have never coon hunted.
But that's what it's all about, though. See, it's not all. It's not all about killing game, guys. It's about being out there. But
when you have a good dog, it's fun to take somebody with you.
But once again, she's not going to embarrass you. See what I'm saying? I mean, most of the time she doesn't. Yeah. And so that's what it's all about. Nobody wants to be embarrassed. So you breed and as you're making your culling decisions and your picking stuff, you say, okay, which one of these dogs is definitely the best, because I don't want to be embarrassed, And when I get so I can't do it, I will shut down immediately. I'll call my buddy, say, okay, guys, I'm done, and I'm going to turn it over to somebody else. And Colton wants to take over, he can, and go from there. So
well, hey, thanks for meeting me over here, guys.
Colton,
Steve, Brandon,
it was a pleasure.
Really, my pleasure to get to talk with you guys. We could talk for hours. I know this guy right here. We could talk for hours, and we'll do this again sometime when we're together. We are going to have. We're going to release another podcast, hopefully, about breeding, which we're going to. Anyway, that won't make sense in the timing of this. But, hey, thanks for meeting with me. And as we always say on this podcast when we close, Steve, keep the wild places wild, because that's where the bears live.
Yeah, okay. I like that. I do. Very good. Very good. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew, Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.